This is it. We are going to crown the #1 top game of 2024 and determine which of these is top of the heap.
And which of these is bottom because they got lost in the shuffle.
Good save. For those of you who may just be joining us, this is actually part 2 of a 2-part episode where we are going to do a little tournament between the top 16 games of 2024 to determine which one's #1.
Yeah.
Last episode, we went through and we met the 16 contenders. And today, we duke it out.
Just wanted to note to everybody, these matchups were randomly selected.
Oh, that's right.
We had 16, we revealed them in alphabetical order, but these matchups right now weren't ranked in any particular order. We just randomly put them into a bracket.
I used computers to
Yes.
do that. Shall we dive right in?
I think we should.
All right, well, let's start with our first of our 8 matchups here. We have the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth, the remake of Seven Wonders Duel, versus Dune War for Arrakis, remake of War of the Ring. So we are each in secret silence.
Yes.
We're going to choose our pick as the game that moves on to the next round. Then we're going to compare notes. If we are unanimous in our agreement, easy peasy. But if we disagree, well, then we have to fight.
If you don't pick the same one as me, I would be prepared to fight you on this one.
Oh, bring it on.
Yeah, because I think 2-player games are very important to have in a collection, and this is legitimately one of the greatest 2-player games of all time that I've ever played. Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth is one of the best 2-player games I have ever played. There are multiple paths to victory, so every time I play it, it feels different. They did a good job implementing the theme. It's also got really nice production value, so it just looks fun on the table as well.
Okay, well, put your weaponry away, Grant, because I agreed with you.
All right.
Though I did abbreviate it because I am very lazy.
Yeah, fair.
Let's advance that one towards the center.
All right.
Which brings us over here.
Okay.
Arcs versus Harmonies.
That's a tough pick. Both of these solid games.
Absolutely. All 16 of these are wonderful.
That is true. Yeah.
So I had to compare many factors here. Which game I could see still being played 5 years from now?
Sure.
And love it or lump it, I had to go with Arcs.
Okay. See, I disagree with you because I think Harmonies is a modern classic board game. I have had more people than any other game on this list message me about Harmonies and going, I played my first board game, it was called Harmonies, and now I want to check out more board games. People love Harmonies, and it has this, it's pretty, so it pulls people in because it's pretty. It's puzzly, so anybody that's like a fan of jigsaw puzzles or something like that, I think Harmonies is going to be a game that people are still talking about. It is getting compared to Azul, and Azul is almost 10 years old at this point and is still actively in people's collections and is still actively bringing people into the hobby, and I think Harmonies is the next game like that.
Wow. You make a series of very good points. I was not expecting that, especially from you.
Now, that being said, don't get me wrong, I think Arcs is a great game. I think it's really unique. I think it's very interesting, but I just don't see it hitting the table for as many people for as long as Harmonies does.
Really good point. Let's talk about Arcs for a moment.
Sure.
It does blend several different mechanisms in a tasty little concoction that people didn't expect.
Yes, I think, and it works better than you think it will.
Yeah, and you got resource management in there. You got dice rolling in the mix. Absolutely.
As a knock against Arcs, you are, managing your resources, sending troops all around the board. There's a lot of strategy in that. But at some point, you have to roll dice. But if you just roll poorly, you're like, oh, I guess I'm set back for the next 2 turns. And that doesn't feel great in a game that has as much strategy as Arcs does.
Okay. On a pro side of Arcs, it has a campaign expansion, which is like, the campaign is fantastic, amazing.
I mean, so there's a lot of content in that box, for sure.
Yeah, but will that content really be played 5 years from now, or will something else, newer and shinier, come along to get people to play it that would have been playing Arcs instead? I think you're right about Harmonies.
All right, I'll take it. Harmonies is moving forward.
There we go. All right, our first upset. There.
Ooh.
Now let's cleanse our palate by taking Slay the Spire, the board game, up against Castle Combo. I think we're about to have another debate.
I think this is a really hard pick for me. I legitimately like both of these games. For me, Castle Combo is a really great game, but again, doesn't necessarily do anything that's that different than I haven't seen. Like the comboing together is reminiscent of other games. The grid building is reminiscent of other games. But Slay the Spire has just so much world building, exploration in it. Castle Combo is the easier game to get to the table, right? It's a 20, 30-minute game. It is fast. It's easy to play with anybody. But Slay the Spire, I hope, will pull a lot of video game people into the world of board games and make those types of people interested in checking out other board games as well. So I'm hoping this creates gamers too.
Well, hope will only get you so far as a board gamer. I mean, hope is why there's, Cat in the Hat edition of Monopoly. Oh, you like Cat in the Hat? I'm pretty sure you'll like Monopoly. It only goes so far.
Sure.
That's one of the reasons why I had to go with Castle Combo.
Okay. I can be convinced. I really like Castle Combo a lot. And to be fair, I have played this one a lot more than I have played this one. Okay,
that's part of my reasoning.
Yeah.
Which one's going to hit the table more frequently for a longer amount of time? If Slay the Spire didn't have the IP behind it, would it have been as popular as it is? I'm not sure.
Sure, but it is still a great game on its own merit.
Totally fair. So if Slay the Spire is challenged by another video game-driven IP board game of similar ilk, I got to go with the one that I think is going to be easier to hit the table and stands out a little bit more.
I will tell you one frustrating thing about Castle Combo, though, is do you know it was a French game before it was brought over to the U.S. Do you know what its name was in French? Chateau Combo. Why is the name not Chateau Combo here?
I'm conflicted.
Yes. We know the word chateau in America. That wouldn't have been that big of a stretch for us.
Sacre bleu. Disgusted.
All right.
Even so,
I am willing to let Castle Combo go through here.
Okay. Let's move it ahead then. Let's squeak it ahead.
Yeah. It was close. It was tough.
Indeed. What do you got next for us?
Okay, we are doing the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game against Civolution.
How are you feeling on your choice?
These are all pretty hard.
One of these two games took a mechanism that I do not like in this genre of game.
Okay.
And put a twist on it, making it something that I not only am okay with, but have been enjoying.
Okay.
And that is the twist on bidding for how many tricks you're going to take.
Oh, sure.
I love trick-taking games, but I hate when a trick-taking game forces you to bid on how many tricks you're going to take. Just extra stress I don't need. But Lord of the Rings, everybody has a character that they draft. And the characters that you draft have a range of tricks that they need to take.
Yeah.
And that little drafting the characters completely fixes that whole problem for me of bidding for how many tricks you're going to take.
Interesting.
Yep.
I also like that there are different characters, based on the different scenarios. So I also picked Fellowship of the Ring. I would like to note, I am aware that we are picking basically every one that we've picked is the lighter version of a game up here.
Fair. However, we did argue about ARCs and we did argue about Slay the Spire.
It is true.
Yeah, it has not been unanimous.
That is true. But this one is unanimous. Fellowship of the Ring, the trick-taking game, is moving on here.
It definitely is. Now, I noticed actually that we didn't talk about Civolution at all, but I want to keep things moving. So if you have an argument for Civolution, well, let us know down in the comments, and maybe we can kind of revisit that in the future. We're not going to, but technically we could. I would love to know some counter arguments for Civolution down in the comments. I would love to see what people say about that. Okay, now I think we have the most extreme difference of any two games.
That is probably true.
Okay, we have Andromeda's Edge, this huge, beefy space game where you're making things, building structures, exploring space, and upgrading units, There's Flip 7, which is basically, do you want another card?
Yep. That is very true. These are highly different games, but I think both games are worth having in your collection. I think both games are great, legitimately. But, I am all about how do we create new gamers and how do we get more people involved in games. And Flip 7 just has the opportunity to create so many gamers. I have almost felt guilty putting this in my top 10 at different times because I'm like, is it enough of a game that I should love it as much as I do? And I just do.
I want to agree with that.
Yeah.
I hope against hope that Flip 7 is still a filler game that's being played at conventions 5 years from now.
I think it will be.
Let's go back. Let's not ignore Andromeda's
Sure.
Edge. Andromeda's Edge is a fantastic game. I waited with bated breath for it to come out, knowing that it was an evolution of Dwellings of Eldervale.
Sure.
And when it came out, I played it, and I wasn't able to formulate an opinion on it on my first play.
Interesting.
I played it again 2 or 3 times, and I was like, okay, yeah, I like this. Okay, I see what's going on here. Yeah, I got everything down. Yeah, but it took a little bit of that learning curve, that experience curve. It wasn't even a learning curve, experience curve. Whereas Flip 7, your first game, you're like, again,
So
come
fun.
on, let's
I know,
go.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I do love the engine building aspect of Andromeda's Edge. There's a real fun, you can get these sort of little cards that you add to your own player and you get special abilities and stuff. That's always fun. And if I was giving an award to like best production of any of these games, I think Andromeda's Edge would win for best production. It's so
Brilliant, brilliant. But not brilliant enough,
cool. Yeah.
apparently. Flip 7 continues on. Oh, this one's going to make me feel bad no matter which way it goes.
And this one's an interesting one because Endeavor Deep Sea and Wormspan are both re-implementations of games that came before it.
You're right, we got another thing of twinsies.
Yeah.
Endeavor Deep Sea comes out. Its tile system for making the area you're traversing, randomizes it and keeps it dynamic game to game. So it's like, wow, not only is Endeavor now getting back to the table and enjoyed by more people, but you have those games that the very first time you just see it, something clicks. Now, let's talk about Wormspan.
Sure.
You cannot deny the elephant in the room that Wormspan is based on Wingspan.
Sure.
It's got this pedigree. Okay? And you got Finspan. So you got this franchise being built on it. And I don't hear anyone complaining about this franchise being built.
Sure.
Which brings me back to, 5 years from today, what am I probably going to see on game store shelves and on gaming tables? It's probably Wormspan.
Okay.
But I put Wormspan ... question mark.
Sure. I'm going to lean on that question mark because I picked opposite from you. I picked Endeavor Deep Sea. I think Wormspan is a better game than Wingspan. It is largely the same. So the improvements are slight. I do think it's like
I see where we're going with this.
Yeah, and so like for instance, I like that Wormspan limits how many times you can sort of trigger a row. Wingspan, you could just hit the same row over and over again, and it could lead to like a runaway leader problem who was just hitting this row over and over. Whereas Wormspan, you have these eggs, you put them on, you can only trigger it a few times around. I like that, but it's mostly the same game. I think they made more changes to improve the game with Endeavor Deep Sea over Endeavor Age of Sail. It's not just theme, there's mechanisms change, there's component changes, and I also just really like the theme changes they made. And so that's why this one is my pick.
I got to respect that and give...
All right.
I got to give Endeavor the edge. I got to give it the edge.
We're doing it.
We're doing it.
Endeavor.
Yeah, we are.
There you go. Next up, we've got Star Wars Unlimited versus Bomb Busters.
Star Wars Unlimited versus Bomb Busters.
Yeah. Look at you staring me down.
I feel another debate coming
Yeah.
on.
I'm just, not a huge TCG guy. I just don't have the energy to keep up. You can put a lot of time into a TCG.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just don't want to put that much time into a single game, which is why I'm picking Bomb Busters here over Star Wars Unlimited.
So your rationale for choosing Bomb Busters is, at essence, because you're lazy.
Yep, I'm okay with that.
Fair.
Yeah.
I put Star Wars
Sure,
Unlimited.
sure.
And I chose Star Wars Unlimited because there have been, over the years, many games that have come out that have tried to dethrone Magic the Gathering as the TCG that props up GameStops. And, and many of them have failed.
Sure.
Star Wars Unlimited is a little different. Before they even went to press with the first print run, they had multiple expansions planned out.
Yeah, so they were ready. They were ready to go to market.
They worked on this game for years.
Okay.
There's two different approaches you can take to game design.
Sure.
One is taking a premise and go, oh, that's neat. Well, let's add this. Oh, you can do this. Oh, you can do that.
Sure.
And you end up with, sometimes you end up with a really neat, interesting set of mechanisms that are interwoven, and other times you end up with a mess.
Sure.
The other approach to game design is to come up with a premise and then say, okay, what can we strip away from this? What can we reduce it down to its core essence and have a game here?
Interesting.
And that is the impression that's what they did with Star Wars Unlimited during its development period.
Okay.
And I appreciate that about it, and I think that can give it more longevity.
Okay. Only one of these games was nominated for a Spiel.
That's true. However, is only one of these games eligible to be nominated for a
that's
Spiel?
probably true. They don't do. Okay, all right. That convinced me.
All right.
I'll give it to this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longevity Star Wars Unlimited actually has. We've seen other Star Wars collectible games just go by the wayside.
Sure.
But I think it has potential.
Okay.
So our last pair-up for this first round is
match.
Unconscious Mind versus SETI, Switch for extra intelligence.
Switch?
Switch for extraterrestrial intelligence.
Yeah.
It's a Switch.
These are both pretty heavy games, though.
They are. Okay. The similarities between these games does not end with the fact that they're both kind of based on real life criteria.
Sure.
Unconscious Mind, which is fictionalized, but based on kind of Freud's psychotherapy system that he set up. He also got the fact that Unconscious Mind has already had an expansion put out.
Sure.
So people are digging it, people are buying it and playing it and expanding it.
Sure.
SETI, on the other hand, based on criteria that has scientific merit.
Yeah.
And SETI, I see it hitting the table a lot.
I see it at conventions certainly more than I see Unconscious Mind.
Yeah, I do as well, and that's why that was my pick of the two.
Okay.
SETI.
I also, my pick of the two was SETI.
Thank goodness.
Part of the reason I did that is one of the criticisms I hear from people about Unconscious Mind is I wish they had pulled one or two things out of it just so it was a more streamlined experience. And even though SETI is a big, long game, I don't hear people saying that about this one.
Okay, I think that's fair.
So there you go. We're moving on, SETI.
Promote it.
Boom.
Here we go. After our first round, we have our next round.
Let's reset the board.
So yes, our Elite Eight starts off with the Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth versus Harmonies.
Ooh.
Which of these two games will strike a chord?
This is legitimately very hard for me. I could make arguments for why both of these are important to the hobby. Harmonies, like I said, is puzzly and pretty, and I have heard from so many people that it helped get them into board games. Lord of the Rings adds a really popular IP onto one of the greatest games of all time and does tweak the mechanisms enough to make it feel different than Seven Wonders Duel and just as fun mechanically as it. So I could see people playing Lord of the Rings Duel as an early game and going, oh, I really like this aspect of the game, and so those are more games like this I want to check out. So I ultimately did pick Lord of the Rings Duel.
Thank goodness. Because I went down that exact same path you did.
Yeah.
My choice was Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, all day.
I think Harmonies is a great game, though.
There's a reason why these are the Elite Eight.
Yeah.
Okay. But the more elite of the two, according to us. So next up, we have Castle Combo and the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game.
Okay. Oh.
You disappointed me.
Oh, boy. Okay, Dad.
When you mentioned one of the weak points of Castle Combo being its kind of small, simple nature.
Sure.
Castle Combo, I think the best way I can describe it is that is a game that is quaint. Castle Combo is quaint.
I feel I could understand that.
Yeah. But the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game made me personally go, wow,
Yeah.
this took something I like and has ratcheted it up a notch and really got me excited for it. So that's why I had to go with that one, the Fellowship of the Ring as my pick.
I also picked Fellowship of the Ring.
Oh, how come?
I love Castle Combo, and I think the mix of all the things it does works really well. But I would call the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game innovative. There are a lot of trick-taking games that are coming out all the time, and it feels hard to do it differently. And yes, this game is iterating off of games that came before, but it found ways to tweak it and make it feel different in a way that I wasn't expecting.
That's exactly what I was thinking. One of the potential negatives for Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game is I've heard it compared to The Crew and The Crew Deep Sea.
Yes.
But as a pure trick-taking game and what I've seen it do, I'm sticking with it too. I don't know what I was arguing against right there. I mean, we're both unanimous.
Ooh, we got an all Lord of the Rings semifinal.
That's going to be interesting.
Now to put Flip 7 against Endeavor Deep Sea.
Oh boy.
To me, these are games. First and foremost, it should be fun. And there's a lot of different ways to be fun. And I have never not had fun playing Flip 7. Every time I play it, it is fun. Everybody walks away from the table having a good time, having built memories and moments together, and I love that about the game.
Is exactly why I agreed with you when I chose
All
Flip
right.
7. Yep.
There we go.
Yep. Every single time I've introduced this game to people, that has always led to moments of, whoa!
Yeah.
It just captures
Yep,
that.
those big emotional moments.
Big emotional moments.
Congratulations, Flip 7, you're moving on. Oh, deep in thought here.
This one's not going to be easy.
It's a real existential crisis for us.
Indeed.
Here.
This is not easy.
Sure?
This is not simple.
Yeah.
You do not want this burden. And I really have nothing new to add to the argument. I just got to lean back on everything I've already said about SETI and Star Wars Unlimited and just reinforce that that's why I chose the Star Waring.
Well, we got our first Elite Eight debate.
Oh,
I went SETI here.
Oh, no. No.
Part of it is because of just the circles I run in. I go to a lot of board game conventions, and I see SETI on the table more often than I see Star Wars Unlimited on the table. And I acknowledge that that might just be because I'm going to board game conventions, not TCG conventions, but still, I see SETI still hitting the table a bunch, and a lot of people have really nice things to say about it.
Will they still be playing it this time next year, or will they have moved on?
I think it is fair to say that they have moved on. There are very few games that have staying power these days, right?
Right. Counter argument time.
Sure.
Several other TCGs have come out recently as well.
Sure. It has more staying power than other recent TCGs, maybe.
Potentially.
Yeah,
Potentially.
sure.
So for whatever it's worth, there's another counter argument. Okay.
SETI is not one I feel strongly enough about to fight for.
Okay. Well, let's save the fight for the finals.
Yeah.
Okay.
4 great games up on the board.
Really interesting matchups here.
Yeah, sure.
We got 2 Lord of the Rings games and 2 card games.
Yeah, we're going to pick a winner between Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth or the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. He doesn't know what to do. You're stuck. Okay, so 2 Lord of the Rings games pitted against each other. It is a hard choice. We can't really, use theme as a reason to pick one thing over the other. But in the last round, I did mention that one of these might be the greatest 2-player game of all time.
Tipped your hand a little bit
And
there.
so I need to pick Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth here.
Yeah. So here we got one that's a trick-taking game and one that is based. It's based on Seven Wonders Duel. One of the greatest games. So, yeah.
The trick-taking game is a lot of fun, and maybe if you play it with different groups, you can play through it. But there is a storyline to it and an end of that.
And you're going to be taking the same strategic approach no matter who you play with.
Yes.
But play this with other people, they're going to approach it completely differently.
I just think there's a lot of depth to it for a game that plays in under an hour. You know? Yeah.
Oh, actually, you know what? At this point, we can just whoop.
Ooh, get out of here, trick taken.
Okay, here's our penultimate choice.
Oh, yes it is.
And you know how much I have lobbied for Star Wars Unlimited at this point.
That is true. I have tried to knock it out multiple times, and you have convinced me otherwise multiple times. Will this finally be when Star Wars Unlimited falls?
Well, long story short, I think it will be.
Yeah, I think we both knew that this was coming.
Yeah, Flip 7 is the one that a lot of people that I introduce games to are going to want to at least start with.
Yep, there we go. Get this out of here. And we're into our final. This is tough. These are both going to continue to hit my table. These are both going to continue to be in my collection for a long time. So if you mention both of these games to me right now, which one would I rather play? This is just a personal decision. And right now, I would rather play Lord of the Rings Duel for Middle-earth.
Looking at these two games, and again thinking, which one of these two games will we probably be having on a list 5-10 years from now? It's more likely than not going to be Lord of the Rings Duel.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay.
I think
this can still make lists.
It'll still make lists.
Yeah. Like of the best party games or the best push your luck games or the best small box games.
I think the Flip 7 has the potential, though, to be, hey, remember that game type of thing, as opposed to, we're still playing this.
Yeah. I mean, because Seven Wonders Duel is still a game I actively play. And so this is going to be a game I actively play for a long time. However, there is a part of me that is nervous that I'm going to eat my words, because there is part of me that wonders if Flip 7 is like the next Uno. Something that everybody knows, something that whether you own a game or not, you know, and Flip 7 has that potential.
Well, obviously, I agree with you.
Yeah, I feel good about it.
Yeah. How do you feel about it? Were there different picks that you would have made in these head-to-head matchups, or would you have gone down a completely different path to begin with? Let us know, please, kind sir or madam, down in the comments. And if you enjoyed this tournament of fun, you have my endorsement to subscribe and to join us for the next
so
episode.
Nice of you to let them subscribe.
I do what I can.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, and we'll talk to you again soon.